you can deal with a spoiled kid that can work the system, but when your wife and you become separated because you don't support each other, and adult children will find a way to do it as well. And the caution for dads is your wife is who you're married to, your daughters are your children.
Everybody, welcome to the SkilledDad Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Graff. If this is your first time joining us, I just want to say welcome. If this is a return episode for you and you are part of the Skilled Dad Society, welcome back. We got an awesome guest, a longtime friend, and I'd say a past and current mentor, even though he doesn't know he's still a current. A lot of stuff he taught me is still relevant today. It's a longtime friend of mine. His name is Max Wimmer. Max, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, glad to be here, Bryan. You're looking good, man.
Oh, I'm trying. I'm a little bit older since the last time we've seen each other face to face since you've moved, and I've made several moves. So now we're up in Idaho. You are down in Alabama. So
that's right.
Two sides of the world still connected because this cool thing called the internet. We have some similarities as dads. You're much further ahead and you're somebody I get to look up to and learn from. And you are a I can't say it anymore because you have son-in-laws, but a full-time girl dad of 4. And I have 2 girls and a son. And I wanted to just dive into what it was like for you to be a dad of only girls. I could probably count on one hand the amount of dads, buddies of mine I know that have only girls and no boys. And it's a different perspective when I talk with them from raising girls to raising boys. And I'll say a confusion for me sometimes raising both is, I'll use the same parenting technique for my son as I will for my daughters, and it doesn't work. And it goes both ways. Sometimes I use a skill for encouragement or punishment on my daughter. Works great. Do it for my son. He could care less.
Yeah.
So I just want to just hear you've been an awesome dad. I know some of your daughters are really close in age to me and I've watched them grow up, and I just kind of wanted to know your secrets, your tools. What are you doing that's been so effective?
Well, I'll be glad to share, Bryan. Thanks for having me on today. I got the season in my life now where my kids are adults. They're having their children. So yeah, I have 4 daughters, raised them up, Kathy and I, and, I was looking at their ages and it's hard to write it down. My oldest is 33. And I've got them ranging between 33 and a recent graduate out of college, Andy at 22. So, yeah, we had 4 daughters and, didn't plan that. It's what God gave us. And, I get a lot of comments like, wow, 4 daughters, how'd you survive? And for me, it was maybe natural, maybe just I was gifted. So that I recognize that for some dads it may be much harder. So I don't ever lose sight of that. Like, I think for me, I had a twin sister. That was a pretty big advantage. Having that sense of growing up with the opposite sex, female perspective growing up seemed to kind of equip me, I think, probably pretty well, maybe unusually. So anything I say, I don't want folks to think that got dads that are listening, wow, he's got it made. It's easy. Cause I think I had some advantages. I can't tell you what it's like to raise boys. I have 4 grandsons now under the age of 4. So I'm getting how different it is, Bryan. Yeah, I'm starting to get what my mom put up with me and my brothers. You know what I mean? It's different. So yeah, I don't know specifically what I could tell you in terms of just like, what's the wisdom of a father? I think, like I said, our Father in heaven gave me this ability to raise daughters, doing it well. Kathy and I have done it together. I think that's key. right?
Yeah.
Um, I think if you and your spouse can raise your children together consistently, that's a really big deal because the design, the architect of a family, it requires a father and a mother and their unique roles and them working together. So yeah, it's been quite a journey to raise four daughters. And maybe one of the themes, I think, Bryan, certainly we raised them in a Christian home, a Christ following home. I would say we were growing up in Christ as much as maybe growing them up in the knowledge of who Christ is. Um, as you probably know, as you raise your children, you start to discover a lot about yourself.
Yes.
And I think, in that you have to have enough humility to realize you don't actually know what you're doing.
At all. It's zero.
Right. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. So having people around that can help you, we were fortunate, right? We grew up in kind of the same church environment. So that was, I think I wouldn't underestimate that mystery of God in the body of Christ and how that works to raise a family. I think it's undervalued and maybe even something you can't measure. We like to measure things these days. We like to have a metric. And so I think that's one piece of the recipe for sure. I do know that as I was raising my kids up, I was very much wanting to be part of their life. I'd say it's easier when they're littler, but as they start to kind of develop their own mind and their own will, their own freedom and choices, that's when it gets different, more difficult, and I think I've watched dads kind of check out. It gets difficult. Young ladies hit a period of their life where they're interested in boys, and you're either taking the position that you're on the porch with your shotgun, right? Which is, I think we joke about it, but that's not healthy. That's not what your daughter wants out of you. It's to threaten, the person she's interested in or whatever, even though, you might need to on occasion to protect them. But so, I stayed engaged in my daughter's lives. I've found ways to be a part of their world. At some point you decide we're going to take them on trips. We're going to do things with them as a family, but then they start to develop their own, friend group, their own interests. And I think one of the biggest things that benefited Kathy and I raising our girls is to stay engaged throughout from kind of preteen, through high school, college, to the extent which you can. Yeah. And I think that was very significant because then you're there in the hard times. You're there as a presence, as someone that is a man, a figure that they can maybe not always want there, but they know is there, watching them, loving them, and being part of their world. And certainly, I think not checking out, intentionally being engaged in your daughter's lives is most significant, I think, as a father, as they get into those ages.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that right now. My oldest, my firstborn is our daughter, and she is getting her own opinions in her own friend groups and her own ideas of how she wants life to be. And a common thing is, I got a 10-year-old going on 18. She is so headstrong. She feels like she's got it figured out already. I'm like, man, this is difficult. And I fight wanting to check out. A common quote coming out of my mouth when I have discussions with her is, if it's something that, especially if it's something I'm apologizing for, because I felt I went maybe was too harsh in the punishment or something, or discussion didn't go well and she ran away. It's an apology from me, always initiating saying, hey, I'm really sorry that I did this. I should have responded instead of reacted. And I just want you to give me a little bit of grace because I've never had a 10-year-old and 6 months. I've never, it's been that for since, since, since she started becoming so independent, and she's been clashing because she wants so much more freedom as she feels she's getting older and she's earned it or deserved it. And we're working through that. There's a lot of times when from like 9 on, I'm like, hey, I've never had a 9-year-old at in 3 months. I've never had a 9-year-old in 10 months. I've never had a 10-year-old in 2 days. Like every day is a new day with you being the oldest, and it's going to look different from her down to my youngest, which is our other daughter, who is 3 years behind her. I'm like, okay, I've had a daughter at this age. I kind of know how to do this. I'm figuring out every day with my oldest. And and you said a bunch of stuff that I found was very enlightening and important, which one, your kids, you continue to look at them as a gift, never as a burden. You were blessed with daughters only, not just given or handed daughters. I just love the way you said that. And I do think some guys look at that differently when, especially when we get frustrated. And then you said that you've been successful because you worked as a team with your wife, Kathy. And, and I learned that a lot from you before kids when I was in that little, Kate and I were in that study with you and Kathy, and just the teamwork is huge. I mean, we've gone through seasons where we've been not working as a team, and that has not only hurt our kids, but was very damaging to our marriage. And it took a lot of effort to get back to, hey, we're a team. And often it's eh, often when it's kind of a bigger consequence, small things, it's okay, little punishments. But if it's something big or serious, like we're dealing with lying right now, we usually roundtable it by just Kate and I stepping out of the room going, okay, how are we going to deal with this? And working together to come up with something effective in maybe counseling, punishment, guidance, whatever it is, trying to hit multiple things in the conversation we're going to have with our daughters or our son prior to just reacting with, you should never lie, and screaming at him.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's,
And you're right. I mean, I'm glad to see that Kate and yourself are taking that approach on. I mean, you're both going to be stronger for that, see different perspectives. And your kids are different too. I mean, they're girls, their gender is female, but their personalities, their birth order, their, experience in life is just all plays into it, in terms of their personality. You have to understand for every kid. Yeah. You want to understand what drives them, right?
yeah,
How are they wired? How do they respond? Right. I guess you would say, what's their love language, right? What motivates them to, and you probably see it, Bryan. I don't know. For me, all 4 of my daughters wanted to please dad, and they wanted to sort of resist and fight mom, primary caregiver, at least in our house, 24/7. So dad's kind of ended up with the benefit of being very, likable, sort of the fun parent. And if that's all you are, then you're really not serving your wife and your kids' best interest. You have to be willing to step in and not just be the liked father, but be there, really just be there, stability and be a partner with your wife to help them see what they need to see. Well, I like what you said, Bryan, because I was making some notes this week thinking about what we might talk about. And humility is a big deal being a parent. I think being transparent to your kids, telling them that you make mistakes, that maybe you shouldn't have dealt with something in a certain way, and that they may not even totally grasp like what happened, right? Either it's your response or I dealt with a lot of anger. So I would get like really frustrated sometimes or angry. And I kind of had to keep coming back and dealing with that. But I remember days we just, step in our house, we just line them up and just kind of go, here's what happened. And, this could have been handled different. And I'm sorry. And I think, that's just, want to be transparent with your kids. You want to live out, the principles that I've been taught as I grew up, learning to follow Christ and what it took to, self-reflect and manage, situations together so they could see that model.
Yeah. And I think the thing I'm hoping for when I apologize is that my daughters see that I'm not perfect, and I don't
Right.
think any man
Yeah.
is going to be perfect for them. And a good man will come back and apologize, and they're not going to think that they do everything right.
Yeah.
Um, and being a parent, you're in a place of, you hold so many positions. I mean, you're in a position of authority, of power. You're also in a position of love, nurture, and care, and raising the kids. And I think it's important for them to see that you need to go between those at times of,
Yeah.
sometimes, I don't know if you want to call it bringing the hammer, but sometimes you need to kind of put your foot down, or be the decision maker as the dad, even if it's hard. And then at the same time, you need to be able to, which I struggle with, turn that off and be the comforter almost immediately after at times.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for my daughters to see that, and also my son to see, okay, this is how you need to be a dad sometimes, or what being a man actually looks like.
Yeah.
And as you said, not disengaging from your daughter's lives, but engaging, and not being the dad with the gun on the porch, but being the dad that's investing in their life is more healthy. And of the oddest of places, I've stolen a quote from, I want to say it was Machine Gun Kelly, like a music artist. And I don't think many of our values probably would align, with my, I could be wrong. I don't know if he is a Christian or not, but, he did say, he was talking about his daughter, and he just loves, it's like an overwhelming love that he gives her. And I was listening to him talk and just said, I'm gonna make it so difficult for the man who's going to marry my daughter to replace me, because it's got to be the right one. And I'm going to call her every wonderful name, so she doesn't hear it from the first time from some guy that just wants to lure her away and ruin her life. I'm going to set the tone to make it be a very special and bright guy to take my daughter. And I was like, I'm stealing that. I like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're a dad who's done that. I mean, I grew up with you being a mentor and a leader in my life, and I feel like you often did that with your girls. And and I read a quote I was telling you when we were off camera of someone tweeted a new, what's the new 1% in America? And there was a few things on it, but the two things that stood out was you raise your kids with good morals and ethics. And then when your kids are adults, they want to spend time with you. And you can go on any of your guys' social media pages, yours or your wife's, or even your daughters. You guys are all over the place doing stuff together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did you maintain that? Because I'm in the difficult time right now as my daughter's 10. I feel like she's 16 sometimes. And I can see we're going into potentially a hard season. Maybe it's not. But I want to be prepared for whatever. And I want my daughter, when she's off to college or whatever she chooses to do, to want to come back.
Right. Right. Well, so yeah, I'll get to your question. I think, Bryan, what I found, and I'll share a lot, is, I became a coach, transportation, the house that, kids would show up and, want to be bonfires, whatever. Like, we just made sure we were a safe place, but a place where they could live out their lives. And we were present to make sure that also, we could sort of supervise or be part of, engaged in. So yeah, whatever that looks like for you, you want them to do the things they are passionate about, but I found myself doing things I thought I'd never do, but I decided to do it because it was important to be in their life. And
Do you have an example of that?
well, so I was a soccer coach for three of my girls, probably for, 20 years. And I maybe played a little bit of soccer in high school. Never had a passion to be a soccer coach. So that was one example, where, they were in a positive experience with a social, friend group. And then I could be there and engaged and influencing that. It was even greater than that because then I realized how many broken homes and kids come into that world. And you want to be the light in that world, not to be just defending your kids, but you actually have an opportunity to, sow into even more young lives at that point in time. So not only are you part of your children, but you're part of their friends. And then your kids see that, as their friends matter to you. And so that was one good example, I think, I found myself in without planning that. That's just sort of how I landed in one of my roles and several of my girls' lives. Yeah. In fact, all of them, all four of them.
Well, hey, I must be doing something right because I am soccer coaching too.
There you go.
Now
Perfect.
for them, man. Yeah, and I never saw myself doing that. I mean, I kind of wanted to, always thinking of my son, and he's the one I can't coach because the timing, and there's usually two other dads that are roaring and ready to go. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll step in. One of my daughters said she wouldn't play soccer unless I was there. So
There
that
you
was my
go.
youngest, and I did it. And
Yeah.
then I did my, sorry, I'm tangenting because of it's so funny. I coached my daughter's team in the fall. And then it was the same exact team in the spring, minus two players. And now my daughter is aging out of that team, but I liked coaching that team so much, and that team's going to stick together because the head coach's daughter is not aging out. So they're going to keep going. And I was talking to Kate, said, I might go back just because I feel like I invested so much into these girls and I'm watching them get so much better that I'll probably go continue to assistant coach Dana's team at the next level. But then when I can, run back down to the team we were just coaching, because watching them get it and then working for them to start not being the bumblebees that just run around and follow the ball. Okay, now we're working on spacing, and then we finally got spacing down. Then we do the fall season. They're doing lead passes and stuff. And I'm like, these 9 to 10-year-old girls are finally getting it that we're going to be such a good team next season. But now Dana's age to the next one. I went, I need to go back and watch it at least.
Yeah, it's good to see, Bryan. Yeah, those are things your children want to do, and you're making yourself part of it. And if you actually pulled it apart, you'd probably be surprised at the influence you have, not just with your children, but these other kids that you're involved in.
Yeah.
So yeah, but to answer your question about, now fast forward, right? We've got adult children, and we moved to Huntsville. We took Andy with us 8 years ago. She had no choice, really. We did have a discussion about, would this be one of the options she could support? And she said, yes, she came along for it. So she spent her high school years here, but, you never know where your children are going to land. It's a different time. The world's opened up to them. They are kind of grown up, as told you can do anything. So they go all over the world. My kids, several of them have spent years, in different countries. And I pretty much thought I'd have to buy a place wherever they land, and to be able to spend time with them. Because I think Kathy and I have always had that desire. So when you look in Malachi, it's not a well-known book in the Bible, but Malachi 4:5-6 talks about how God will turn the hearts of the parents to the children and the hearts of the children to the parents. And a friend of mine that I got to know several years ago, his passion is around that verse, to make sure that, the world that we want, Bryan, I think that God designed for us is not that we raise our kids, kick them out at 18 and go do anything you want, be anything you want, wherever you want. I'm not sure that theme is that healthy. I think there's
Yeah.
aspects to that are good. But when you think about family, why is it that model, like that Western model of family, who came up with that as good, right? It's like other cultures spend all generations will be together, young to aging out, right? And so to me, that Western thinking, I always felt that was broken. So we fought for that, and so we moved to this strange place in the South, a California, couple moving to the South, and our kids started moving here. And yeah, it's affordable. Yeah, they can raise their children much more affordably, but they wanted that family. They wanted that connection with us. And I'll tell you, it's surprising to me. Like I'll share that story, but literally all 4 daughters, 3 of them married, 5 grandkids, they've all moved to Huntsville. And in this season, that's what's happening. And yeah, we do lots of things together. And I don't know that that's typical. I'm not sure that's normal in a Western culture.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's not. You probably get the same conversations and comments that my parents get. I feel like they're very similar to you and Kathy and kind of, uh, I'd say also maybe it's a little bit of luck, but just the way you raise your kids.
Sure.
I were California transplants up to Idaho,
Yeah.
and my older sister left 4 or 5 years ago with her husband and kids. And my parents getting close to retirement. My dad didn't want to retire in California. So he and my mom left for Idaho saying, hey, at least we'll be by 1 kid. Maybe the rest will follow, but I'm sure the rest are leaving the state anyways. And we weren't planning on moving to Idaho. And then a year or so after that, we decided I got medically retired from work. So we moved to Idaho so I could figure out what I wanted to do next. And then my younger sister and her family are likely going to follow in, I don't know, 5 years. If they don't, they constantly make trips up to see family. And my parents get asked all the time, how do you have adult kids with their own families still wanting to spend time with you? And they're just, like, God did it. Like, I guess we did something right.
Yeah, God did it. And I think there's two comments maybe. The 1% just really, I'm chewing on that. I'm like, how can it only be 1%, Bryan? That's
Oh, I don't think it was like 1% of families. I think the comment was more for the new 1%, like how we look at the 1% as wealthy. The new 1%, the new goal is not
I
to be
gotcha.
wealthy. It's to have your family want
It's
to be
rich and
around you.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that 1% can grow to become sort of normal in Western. I see it. Like, it's really cool to talk to you because, my generation, I came out of maybe some parent involvement, but nothing like Kathy and I chose to get involved. Kathy did have a family that was that kind of model, but yeah, I think it's the long game, Bryan. It's the long game, right? It's nothing instant. I was thinking about this podcast and, what's the secret, right? And it's consistency. It's teaching your children about Christ. It's love. It's absolute love. Your children need to know you love them no matter what. They could be messing up really bad and they're still loved. But it's that consistency. It's that long game. And I think that is the fruit, right? That's the reward that comes back. And I've seen families, they didn't get the reward. They made the investment. So I think that, maybe folks are listening to this going, I invested, right? When do I get that, reward back? And there's a lot of brokenness and there's a lot of it doesn't turn out that way. Right. And as parents, you can only do so much, and the will of your children, your children go and decide who they're going to be. Right. So I think you can make that investment. And I think that's our job. Like our job is to invest as best as we can. If in fact they turn that investment into something that, is a reward back in terms of seeing you and Kate, coming back to, family, I think that's awesome, and that's a gift and that's a blessing for sure. And I guess I could feel like I take some credit for being responsible in that long game, but the return has been really, really neat to see. I've always envisioned how I would be a grandfather, right? How I would help raise the next generation. And, so that's different. Like we could talk about that some other time, right? Like
we'll get
that chapter.
Yeah, we'll get you on the Granddad podcast.
Yeah, right.
I think that's important to note that some people do make the investment, some parents, and they don't get the reward. Yeah. And I just feel like if we go back to Christ, that's his example is he made the investment for everybody and he doesn't get the reward. And that's just what love is sometimes. We're just called to love. And we're called to love and when it's easy and when it's hard and when maybe my kids, one of them doesn't want to be around. And when they do come around, whether it's asking and maybe it's asking for just needing help financially or they only contact on Christmas, or maybe it's nothing. I still am going to love them. And that's the thing is I'm learning when you're a parent that you don't get to stop doing that. No matter what their choices are, I can't let their actions, their behaviors dictate how I'm going to choose to love them.
Right.
So
absolutely.
And I can't imagine what that's like. It does sound extremely difficult.
Yeah. And I think, Bryan, if there is a recipe, Kathy and she picked me up last night at the airport. We had 2 hours to drive from Nashville to Huntsville. And she was telling me about her friends, and she had coffee and saw 2 friends this week, both divorced. And we're just looking at each other and I said, you got to get different friends. We just talked about 5 women in your life that are divorced. And she said, gosh, what happened? And I said, well, first of all, quite honestly, a lot of times it's the guys that mess up. And I said, these guys are idiots. They've screwed up bad. And I know the situations and it's like these women are older in life and they've got broken families. And fortunately, Bryan, I dealt with my mistakes, right? I've come to terms with when I blow it. I've done the work, and Kathy is just long in love and forgiveness. And so I think one of our jobs is to hold ourselves accountable to our relationship with Christ and serve our wives. And that is really like Christ tells us that, but when you do it, not perfectly, but when you do it humbly and allow him to, mold you into a man, into a father, into a serving, loving spouse, that is, a married couple, children want to come back to the mom and dad. Mm-hmm. In all our flaws, they still come back. So that's pretty instrumental too. I think, not only are you investing in your daughters, but you got to invest in Kate, right? You've got to serve Kate. You've got to be that man that she needs in her life. And again, you're that model for your children. Your girls will see that that's what a man looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really powerful. That's really important.
Yeah. There's 3 people I could look back on that told me marriage isn't the end. It is just the starting point of the relationship where you continue to pursue your wife. You didn't just marry her and now it's done. And that was uh, a mentor pastor, Danny Basham, when we were going through premarital. That was a non-Christian friend who was mentoring me to get into law enforcement, who is constantly telling me I need to start dating my wife and to stop focusing so much on what needs to get done to provide, but I need to provide in the way of pursuing her. And then you and Kathy, when we would get together, was you got to have date nights. And I can say that when we didn't have date nights for long periods, like years, it would hurt her and it hurt our relationship a lot. And it took years for me to see that. And now it's like, we're one of the few couples I know of that make that a huge priority. And we do a date night every other week. We figure out how to fit it in financially. It's not always the easiest. Sometimes we don't get to go do the nicest places, but we get away from the kids, away from the normal life, and we go have fun with whatever, if it's Top Golf, if it's just ice cream, if it's a movie, whatever it is, and we date each other. And I love that our kids see it, that my son knows that I'm leaving. So I get to tell him that I'm like, you're the man of the house. And I first told him that, he goes, he ran to mom and said, Mom, you and Dad are going on a date night. And he said, I'm the man of the house. What's that mean?
What am I supposed to do here?
Yeah. What do I do with that? And then
Mow the lawn.
I'm watching my oldest, her eyes are almost lighting up sometimes, like, hey, it's Wednesday. Are you going to take mom out today? Like, she's as excited for my wife as my wife probably is, that we get like 2 to 3 hours of just our time. And I think now that I'm recognizing what she sees at only 10, I'm like, okay, this is cool. Like, I want her to find somebody that wants to do this. And I want to help her see if the person is going to do that, or if she's like, Dad, this is the guy that I'm serious about. And I think if he asked me, I'd want to marry him. Well, then I want to invest in him and say, hey, give him like, hey, this is what I've learned. Probably things that you're doing with your 4 son-in-laws or 3 son-in-laws and one day 4, that you get to invest in them and say, hey, this is what's worked. I don't know where their families are on that end, but maybe their own parents have nice success stories too. But meeting somebody who's been married for a long time is exciting for me. Like, we had a really special date for my 36th birthday last night. And we went to this dinner where the tables were like, I don't know, this far apart. And so we were sat right next to 2 complete strangers, and they're talking about their daughters. One's in her 30s and the other's in her late 20s. They're still dating each other. They're talking about all the trips that they go on and that they get to take their kids on sometimes. And I always get blown away because I run into more people that just seem like they're on their 2nd or 3rd marriage, or they're divorced and they're ahead of me, than I do people who are still married. And I just listen to the little things that they say in conversations, without little nuggets I can pick up of, okay, well, what are they talking about that's so exciting that I can implement into my life, my marriage, my parenting? Because they're like, this couple is much farther ahead of me. And I need to steal some stuff because the world really wants to rip this apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I can't believe you're 36. I don't know how you got there. Because there's no way I'm my age, but it is. Yeah, I do think it's that long game. It's that consistency. It's loving your wife. It's dating her. It's, providing or protecting her. And I know Kate. I know she's committed. God gave women this ability to love us, Bryan, when we're just sometimes not lovable, man. And so, you're going to have to come back and apologize for things for years. You're going to have to keep reflecting and self-realize, check in. And that's what these times are good. Like, you're right now, you're making me better, right? You're you're challenging me to do. Am I doing that with my wife? Am I still pursuing her after 38 years of marriage? And you never stop. You just have to keep reminding each other that how important that is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a piece of it for sure. And I think you're fortunate that you still see that value in your marriage, and your kids are going to benefit by that greatly.
Oh, it's I'm not gonna toot my own horn like that too much. I mean, it did take a lot of screw ups, and it's probably been a much greater priority over the last 3 to 5 years than it was prior.
Yeah.
I mean, you go through the honeymoon phase, and okay, we're married for a while, and I let it decline. And so, yeah, I've come back and apologized and still apologize. And when you said that Kathy has so much forgiveness for you, all I could think about is, oh man, I think my wife's the exact same though. Just depth of forgiveness is,
Yeah.
I don't ever want to find the end. I'll tell you that, but
No,
I think
no, you don't.
it'd be hard, and I don't even want to come close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only wisdom I give you there, Bryan, is, the one time I made a really bad mistake. It's interesting. Kids will separate parents, right? It's as simple as they'll go ask mom and then go ask dad. And if your answer isn't the same, well, first of all, if they ask mom and she says no and you say yes, now not only is your kid just got what they want, but you just told Kate her decision isn't any good. You don't support her.
Yeah.
Which is even worse, honestly. You can deal with a spoiled kid that can work the system, but when your wife and you become separated because you don't support each other, and adult children will find a way to do it as well. And the caution for dads is your wife is who you're married to, your daughters are your children.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to decide who you're going to go with. And if it's not your wife, that's a big mistake. So,
Yeah.
You've got to stay connected with your wife, because even your adult children will look for opportunity to get a parent to side with them on a decision that may not be unified,
Yeah.
So yeah, it transcends that first kid wants something. Yes, mom, no mom, dad disagreement, and it just continues. So you got to stay connected with Kate and her heart on things.
I see and hear some friends and some couples who have really young kids, and the love and affection one parent shows the kids is usually sometimes more than the spouse, which is scary. And then especially when it's followed up by like a snarky, like semi-funny comment that you can't tell if there's a whole lot of truth to it, about that they would pick the kid well over the spouse. I'm like, oh man, if you walk into my house and you ask my 3 kids, hey, who does your dad love? They're first going to say Jesus, then they're going to say mom, and then they're going to say the rest of us.
Yeah.
They know the order.
Yeah. The good order. It's the right design. Just follow the design. You'll be okay.
Yeah. I mean, I picked her, and I heard another quote from a dad. Oh man, this was only like a couple months ago, who said it was one of those kind of spats where the kids were trying to almost put the parents against each other. They just wanted a yes on the answer. And the dad said, look, I'm always going to side with mom, because she was here long before you were, and long after you're gone, she's going to be here. And I don't want to ever have any problems with her. It's like, I could deal with problems with you, and one day you're going to move out and have your own family, but I want her to be here with me long after that. I like that. I like that perspective.
Yeah,
the kids will grow up and move out, and they should.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
My wife hopefully never wants to move out.
Yeah.
So before we leave, because it's been an awesome conversation, I have always had good recommendation on books for how to raise my son. And I'm going through one called How to Raise a Modern Day Knight. And I'm working on taking some steps to raise my son to have good morals, good ethics, and to know when he is a man, he knows he's a man. He doesn't ever have to question it. Like, he can make the decisions, and it also kind of shows the dad that at some point you need to step away from being dad and being a man standing beside him and giving advice, not telling him how to do things, and letting him take the advice or not. I did get a book from you on taking my daughter through right now, but are there any books that you know of that are good for raising daughters, or good to go through with kids that maybe some listeners would want to hear?
I wasn't prepared for the question. I look behind me and there's a lot
so many
of
books.
Yeah, we at a time, Focus on the Family was pretty instrumental at a lot of resources that they have. We actually became really good friends and still are with a family that has 12 children. The Focus on the Family, I think, did a pretty good job. It's funny, Bryan. I would say for Kathy and I, yeah, there's been resources. I don't know if there's anything that just sticks out in terms of, what would be a good resource for people to pick up and read. I don't, this 5 minutes, have a good recommendation for that. Just thinking about it now, I don't.
Yeah, that's okay. I know, talking with you, I think it was like a month ago, it was really encouraging to just hear you give me, I think it is the book called Practicing the Way.
Yeah.
In that book. And just the encouragement from you of, hey, doing stuff like this with your daughter is just going to get such a good return on investment down the road. I think that alone, even if you can't recommend a specific book, just recommending the one-on-one time and the encouragement you sent me to just jump in and do it was all I needed.
Yeah, that's a really, Mark Cormer does a nice job. John Mark Cormer? He does a really nice job with making, practicing, following Christ, pretty straightforward for all of us. I would tell you, I think one of the resources that we use, Bryan, I would have never thought this. So I did men's Bible study through a program called BSF. And at the Church of the Foothills that we attended, there was just a number of guys. We'd go on Tuesdays. And then they'd allow you to bring your children. So I started bringing 3 of my girls with me, and they still talk about that. And they were little, so we were intentionally on Tuesday nights, Dad and the 3 daughters of mine at the time would go do Bible studies, where the kids were actually separate. Like, they would have their own, teachings, and they still talk about that. I think it was pretty impressionable on them. But again, it was something I did with them, and that really it was like very meaningful. I hardly remember it. Like, herding 3 kids to a Bible study was a lot, but the fruit came out of that. So sometimes it's like I said, it's going and doing those intentional things with them, teaching them, not just to follow Christ, but to go with Dad. And that is what, I think really impressed them is that they could go study God's word with Dad, and that's why I thought about you with that book. Is it is hard to be consistent and take time, but if you could do it on a regular basis, I think you'll find, check in with you, 10 years from now, it'll be a very impressionable, hour or 2 a week that you spend. Even if you can only find 30 minutes, it'd be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. She looks forward to them every time. We missed one for camping. We brought our books thinking we might have time. Well, I told her to bring hers. I was going to pack mine, and I left it on the counter as we walked out the door. And then we didn't find time. And then we just got back from camping and just got inundated with finishing up so many things that we just walked away from. And I was going to bed last night and was just like, oh my gosh, Kate, I forgot. Yesterday was Thursday morning. Thursday mornings are the day I do the book, but we woke up and just were go, go, go. And so right before I jumped on, I pulled my daughter aside and just said, hey, we didn't do the book. Yesterday we were so busy. So I said, we're doing it today. Once I'm done with my 2 meetings today, we're doing it. And she goes, we're doing 2, Dad. That's okay. We're going to do 2 readings. You got it.
That's great. That's
So,
awesome.
well,
Yeah.
Max, I really appreciate your time and you coming on here. It meant a lot. And even just reconnecting, the funny way we ended up reconnecting through years of just, missing each other. Yeah. Kathy finds when Kate and I were running a couple of Airbnbs in Tennessee and kind of reconnected us to talking every so often. It was amazing.
Thank God for Kathy being a connector, keeping get the glue to all that. So yeah, it's good to see you, Bryan, and Kate. I'd love to come meet you guys sometime, and see your family. And
well, now that I know that you're about 2 hours from Nashville, we're trying to figure out a trip out there, and Zach's going to watch this in here. So we're trying to figure out a trip before the end of the year out to Nashville and then head over to some friends in Knoxville. So if you're that close, I think we're just going to hang out up here, then take a day down and come see you guys and bring the kids and you can see them. And then hopefully spend the day with you guys and see.
Love it. There's always a room and a place for you here.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to let Kate know. So now the trip's
like
getting a little bit longer, which is great.
Awesome.
And for everybody else, hopefully you turned in, hopefully you learned something new, especially if you're a girl dad. And I hope something you took away from this, like I did, was it's not always the big giant gestures that make you an amazing dad. It's just doing the little stuff. It's being consistent. And it's just showing up because your kids are going to remember stuff long after you do. And it may just be a blip for you, but it may be a massive dot for them. So till next time, guys, Max, once again, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, Bryan. Glad I could be here. Thanks.